The snow began as a hush, a fine chalk drifting over the switchbacks above Andermatt. Lena kept the rental's wheels tight to the inside line while the cliff fell away on her left, a vertical mouth dark as a shut door. "We should have left earlier," Jonas said, rubbing fog from the window. In the back seat, Mora cradled her phone and tried, without bars, to load a forecast. Emil watched the avalanche fences ridging the mountain like ribs. They had taken a detour after St. Gotthard Pass when a truck jackknifed, trusting a blue line on Lena's offline map that promised a shorter road toward their chalet in Cedron. The blue line had become a grey ribbon, then a suggestion, then a seam in the snow. A wooden sign, half buried, had pointed them toward Tgom Ridge in a language none of them read, warnings in Romansh with a little triangular icon that Jonas laughed at. "Triangles just mean mountains," he said. The flakes thickened. In the mirror Lena saw only their own headlights thrown back by the storm, two pale coins that made the world small. The Audi shuddered over ruts. "We turn back," she said. Mara leaned forward. "There's a hut on the map. An Alpine club hut. A few kilometers. If we reach that, we can wait the night." Emil nodded. "Straight, then right at the bridge. I trained nearby once. There's shelter." His voice carried a steadiness they wanted to borrow. Jonas exhaled into a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Fine. Hut. Fondue later, if we don't freeze." The bridge, when it appeared, was a slab of concrete over a trench of churned snow. The guardrail wore a ruff of ice, and the wind bullied the car as if to roll it. On the far side, the road narrowed to one lane tunneled by drifts. Lena edged forward, knuckles white, until the headlights brushed a low stone wall and a squat shape behind it. The hut's shutters were latched, its roof scalloped by heavy snow. A brass plaque by the door read in 3 languages, "Closed for season. Emergency use permitted." Inside, they found wooden bunks and a pot-bellied stove, a row of old boots like retired soldiers, a smell of creosote and mouse scat. Emil stacked kindling and twisted newspaper. Jonas rooted in the cabinets and hooped at a cache of dried noodles and bouillon. Mora, by her headlamp, traced a laminated map pinned to the wall. "Cedron is 12. Lena held her hands over the stove as it came alive. Heat lifted the damp from her gloves and made the small space feel like a held breath. For the first time since the detour, she felt the knot in her chest loosen. Then Emil said, "Listen." They all did. In the pauses between gusts, something moved outside the hut, not the dry hiss of falling snow but a drag and a tap, as though a stick drew patterns across the stones. "Animal," Jonas said. "Ibex." Mora's headlamp found a slit in the shutters. She peered through and went still. "What?" Lena whispered. "Someone's walking," Mora said. "But the gait is wrong. It's like he's testing the ground ahead with a pole. Slow. 1 step. Tap. Drag." The wind clawed at the hut again. When it lulled, the tapping continued, closer, deliberate, counting out the seconds like a metronome pushed just a little too slow to be human comfort. It did not speed up. Ever present. Emil unlatched the shutters and lifted them a hand's width. Cold board into the room. He peered out, then lowered the wood with care. "There's a man," he said. "Tall. Hooded. He has a staff or probe. He's following our tracks from the bridge. Rescue." Jonas brightened. "A ranger." "His headlamp is off," Emil replied. "Why walk blind in a storm? They killed the lantern." The stove ticked. Outside, the tapping halted at the door. The silence after pressed on their ears. Mora's breath feathered. Lena's palms sweated inside her gloves. Jonas swallowed, Then cursed the sound. A gloved knock came, 3 neat raps. The brass plaque trembled. Lena moved before she thought. She slid the bolt an inch and called, "Wrister?" The answer arrived in Romansh, muffled, quick. Emil leaned in. "He's asking for shelter. Says there's a danger on the ridge, and he can guide us down by morning." "Let him in," Jonas said. "We can't freeze a man out there." Lena opened the door. The figure stepped in and lowered his hood. His beard was rimed with snow, his face narrow, his eyes pale. He set a long aluminum probe by the wall and unshouldered a pack with rope, a folded tarp, a flask. "My name is John," he said in German now, slow. "The storm is loading the cornices. We will not move tonight. You had luck reaching here." He eased his hands to the stove, then withdrew as if heat stung. "I watch the ridge," he said. "People wander. I help." Mara offered him tea from a dented kettle. He declined with a small shake. Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Health nut. In these storms you sip sparingly," John said. "You never know when you must share." He asked how they came. They told him. He nodded and drew a map in the frost on the table with one blunt nail. "Bridge, avalanche gallery, this hut," he said. "Tomorrow, if the wind eases, we traverse along the old military road to the power station. It is ploughed. But we must leave early." "Why early?" Lena asked that he wiped it clean. "Because something wakes the snow near noon, and after it wakes it moves." He said it without drama, like reciting a bus schedule, and that made Lena's scalp prickle. Emil glanced at him. "Solar warming, you mean?" John did not answer. He took the probe and checked its segments by touch, length by length, a ritual of metal and glove. Then he stood, opened the door again, and stepped out into the blue dark. "I will check the bridge for settlement," he said. 5 minutes. He did not return in 5, nor in 10. The tapping came again, farther off, paced, as if someone measured the ground where the road fell away. Jonas mouthed, "What is he doing?" Emil shrugged, but his hand drifted to the rescue whistle on the hut's key hook. When John finally came back, he carried a wedge of broken cornice. He dropped it beside the stove. It hissed softly. "We do not cross the bridge if the wind rises," he said. "Thank you," Lena said, and meant it, yet unease stayed. Cold seemed to cling to John, as if he wore weather under his skin. When he smiled, it showed only the fronts of his teeth. He lay on the lower bunk with his boots on, the probe at his side like a spear, and listened without closing his eyes while the hut creaked and the storm pressed the shutters. Snow sifted under door. They slept in fractions, waking to the stove's tick, the wind's lulls and John's faint pacing. When Lena drifted off, she dreamed of the triangular warning sign blinking. She woke to Emil whispering her name. His headlamp was cupped in his palm, light leaking through his fingers. "Listen," he said. A distant horn moaned, low and long. Not a train, too old a sound. Another joined it, then died away. John's eyes, pale in the dark, turned toward the shutters. "Serac," he said. "The glacier talks." At dawn the storm softened. The light outside was blank and sourceless. John had them eat quickly and pack. "Rope up," he said. He split the coil, tied them in, and fixed the probe across his back like a banner. "We step in my prints exactly. If you fall through, spread your weight and do not thrash." "Fall through what?" Jonas asked, trying to make a joke of it and failing. "Wind slab," John said. "Moat. Old pits." They left the hut to the stove's embers and the line of retired boots. Outside was a white page with 3 dark marks, each of them that moved. John's steps were measured. Crunch, pause, tap. The tap was the probe touching down. Sometimes it hit stone with a quick sound. Sometimes it made a hollow thud as if the mountain ate the noise. There, John angled away. Above the road a slope unrolled like a great sleeping animal. John raised a hand. They stilled. He studied the drift, then beckoned them to cross, single file, fast. "Quiet," he mouthed. Jonas, strung third on the rope, slipped. A small slab sheared away and hissed into the chute. Nothing else moved. Jonas swore. Mara squeezed his shoulder. He shook. They reached the avalanche gallery. A concrete tunnel burrowed through cliff, its mouth barred by a mound of wind-packed snow. John probed, carved steps, and ushered them inside. The tunnel smelled of stone dust and a faint sweetness. Their headlamps found old graffiti. Mara paused, holding her light on a smear of red. "Rust," Emil said, though it looked fresh halfway through. Lena's beam caught a bundle in a niche. She recoiled, then swallowed relief. Not a body. A backpack, sun-bleached, its zipper broken. Inside lay a map, a wallet fossilized in ice, a folded tarp like John's. There was also a laminated card with a name, John Kamenisch, with an Alpine Rescue emblem. Jonas grinned. "Our man is official," he said, a little too loud, and his voice ran ahead of them and came back thin. John didn't turn. "Put it back," he said. "We move." On the far end, the gallery's exit had half collapsed, a cornice hanging like a white jaw. John tested it with the probe. "Fast," he said. He went first. Lena followed, then Jonas, then Mara, Emil bringing up the rope. As Lena crouched, she heard a sound not like snow but like someone humming through their teeth, a note that seemed to vibrate in her skull. She looked up. For a heartbeat, a dark oval showed in the cornice, rhymed and depthless, like a hole punched into glass, to be why noon the wind rose, a hard push from the east. The rope tugged between them. John angled off the road, toward a stand of black larch that scratched the white sky, and Lena felt in her bones that if the wind asked them to lie down they would. No one mentioned the card. They moved faster. The trees broke the wind. In their lee a path appeared, a fox line stitched toward a grey block of buildings. "Power station," Emil said. John angled them into the larch, guiding between boles where the probe found hollows. Once he stopped so abruptly the rope snapped tight. "Down," he said. They crouched. A crack went off high like a huge door slamming. A white cloud folded over the ridge and poured into a neighboring gully, ran a long breath, then lay still. Jonas made a sound like a laugh torn in half. They moved again. The sky opened to hard blue, then closed. At a ploughed service road, John shook the rope from their harnesses. "From here you walk," he said. "Right 2 kilometers. A guard will call the police." He tapped the probe on his boot, once, twice. "Do not stop." "Come with us," Lena said. "I have other tracks to watch." He turned back into the trees with the same neat, testing steps. The trunks took him. Wind filled the gap and smoothed his passage. The road felt indecent in its ease, bordered by posts with reflectors that winked like eyes. At the gatehouse a man in an orange jacket swore softly, then herded them into heat and called for help. The first sip of tea hurt. Mara could not stop shaking. Jonas stared at the steam as if it might explain something, that a cantonal officer arrived and took notes with practiced calm. Names. Route. The hut was unlocked. He nodded. "Good." When Jonas said, "John Kamenisch from Rescue brought us," the officer paused. He repeated the name, looked at the gatehouse man, and they spoke briefly in Romansh. The man crossed himself without meaning to. John Kamenisch died last winter on Tgom, the officer said gently. Cornice failure during a search. We recovered his pack later in the avalanche gallery. Silence filled the room. Emile inhaled to argue, then let it out as a shrug. John is common, he said. Maybe another. Maybe, the officer agreed. People hear poorly in wind. Names blur. He closed the notebook. We'll send a crew to the hut. A cheap hotel took them. The radiator ticked. Lena dreamed of the triangular warning sign again. This time her own face peered from inside the paint, mouth making a shape she could not hear. She woke before dawn and stepped onto the balcony. The ridge stood like teeth. In the drift on the railing, 3 tiny marks showed. Tap, drag, tap. Wind, she told herself. A broom's bristle. A trick of Thor at a tea breakfast. A muted television looped yesterday's footage of rescuers on Tgom, red jackets like berries in white. A crawl mentioned renewed movement of the East Cornice and a controlled release scheduled for noon. She sipped coffee that tasted metallic and listened for a humming that never came. Later, at the station, while officers checked their statements, Lena asked, "Who watches the ridge now?" "We all do," the officer said. "It watches us back." On the train, the mountains slid past, self-possessed. The hut, the tunnel, John's pale eyes, the probe tapping out its measured code, these arranged into a story that could be told many ways. She took out her phone. No photos had saved. The cold had killed the battery and the memory both. She typed John Kamenisch, then locked the screen. She pressed her forehead to the glass, and in the window she saw their 4 reflections and, beyond them, a slope of unmarked white.